Hi everyone, this is Vincent Hammer from Exocad. Wanted to go over some new features that are in the Partial CAD or the upcoming Partial CAD Galway release. In particular, this has to do with how reconstructions are merged with the framework. So we're going to look at this particular case. We're going to delete the reconstruction and look at the settings here, and it has to do with this particular box of options that is available in expert mode. So in this particular case, there is nothing to merge because none of the reconstructions were set to be non-editable. Okay, so what happened here is this particular case. Coping, it was set to be editable, and editable basically means convert this to wax. And when you convert something to wax, you can manipulate it and do all kinds of stuff with it, but you lose your original triangles. So non-editable is a method where you can keep your original triangles and have it merged. Now the first thing we have to do though is we have this wax here. We need to actually get rid of that wax. So we'll just remove the wax quickly using the remove from wax feature. And then we'll go back and set this to be imported as non-editable. Okay, so and now also we have to make sure that we have a connection because right now the wax is just touching the edge. We want to get a better connection. There's a few ways we could do that. We could try and thicken the wax so that we could try and thicken the wax. I'm just going to do it with the clone tool. I'm going to fill this in a little bit here. And then I'll go back in and smooth that out. Okay, let's just clean that up a little bit. Okay, let's look at the other side here quickly. Okay, that looks reasonable. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go back to SafeBuild. And just to make it go a little faster, we're going to turn off tolerance and the void checking. And so now it sets to do the milling. And so the way these options differ, if it's optimized for milling, then it doesn't care about shelled surfaces, so it's a very quick and easy merge to merge parts for milling in that way without losing any triangles. Watertight, there's a quick way to do the watertight, but that actually ends up converting the non-editable to wax, so you do get resurfacing. And the new option is watertight with no resurfacing, with the hint behind it that this takes more time, and it's also possible for this occasionally to fail. So let's make it fail deliberately. So I'm going to turn off relief, and that's going to actually cause a problem. Let me quick show you why that would be a problem. We'll go back to here, hide the block out. You may have noticed that before. So what you can see here is that the wax is coming up and touching the inside of the coping here. And because it's touching the inside, there's some triangles that are a little bit inside, some triangles that are outside. Suddenly this little connection, which was a really simple connection, if you look over here, this boundary is a very simple connection. But because it's like touching, and if it's touching, it's going in and out because the triangles aren't identical, suddenly this becomes a very complex connection. And if you have that, there's a good chance that this is that the computer will fail at solving that connection. Okay, so let's just make it fail and let's see what happens. Okay, so we'll just go directly to SafeBuild. Okay, so if you get this message, hybrid stitching failed, it will actually not try and stitch. It will output all the meshes, but they won't be in one file. They won't be merged together in any way. And so it's basically telling you, the boundaries need to be cleaner. And now we're just going to do what we should have done by default is the relief settings. And if the relief, so actually in this particular case, we have imported parts set to 0. By default, there's just a little bit of offset to the imported parts. So let's quick take a look and see what that looks like and why that solves the problem. Okay, so you see that what it's done is it's added a little bit of relief just under the wax there, and because of that, we're not going to have a problem. Actually, let's look at it like we did before. Okay, and as you can see now, where there's no longer that that overlapping, a tiny amount of overlapping that's causing the problem. Okay, so that is what you would get by default. Now, but let's say that you are somebody who likes to do his own relief and doesn't want to have auto relief on. What are your options? So first, let's undo the auto relief. Okay, and then let's like there's a lot of different ways that we could solve this problem. We could obviously go into edit blockout and add something. We could go to the clone tool, of course. In the clone tool, we have the option to edit the blockout. If we go into settings here, right, we're going to blockout mode, and we could then add a very thin layer here. Let's add 20, right? So you could block out the area that way. And last but not least, you could go back. It's probably, if you're not going to use auto relief and want to do this manually, probably the best way to do it is in here, because here you can actually see exactly what you're doing. So if I'm here now, right, I can just either, well, yeah, I can do a tiny amount of subtractive smooth and just push that inside boundary back a little bit. That would be a way that you could do it manually. And you know, I basically just modified what's inside the coping already, so it really doesn't matter. It's really about this little boundary that's right here, right? That it's clean and that we don't have any overlap in there. All right, so now when you go here into SafeBuild, and you take a look at your settings here, we've got the watertight, we have a little bit of relief. We actually don't need it because we manually moved it back. Now we can just do a SafeBuild and we should be all set. Okay, so here we have it. Let's just convince ourselves that this all worked correctly. Okay, so here's our case. We have the very sharp margin and everything, the original triangles, and we have the original triangles of the wax here. Yeah, and you can see the border that's where it stitched them together. But actually, the real test is to go here, go to Analyze Meshes, and then check Mesh Topology, and yeah, it's completely closed and without any holes. So that's the perfect scenario. It's watertight, and there's no modification of the triangles. Very good. That's what I wanted to show you guys. Thank you.